and like people haven't been getting to go to theaters as much. Like we had COVID, we have streamers, and like I love a good stream, but like the movie experience is so special, and it's something that I looked forward to so much as a kid. It's something I look forward to as an adult, and it's rare that something like pulls you into theaters like that. And now if you are going to theaters, it's for a great example. Watching Deadpool and Wolverine in an audience of people, if you're watching that at home, it's just there's the human experience of people watching and feeling together.
We are starting to learn more details about a secret declaration filed by Blake Lively a little over a week ago. This declaration connects to her legal fight against Justin Baldoni and Wayfair Studios. She's asking the court for heavy penalties, claiming that lawsuits filed against her were done out of revenge after she made accusations against Baldoni. According to her, California law allows her to seek triple damages if the claims she made were credible and not malicious. Even though the judge didn't dismiss Baldoni's case using this law, she still went ahead and submitted a supporting declaration. The declaration came from someone whose name is being kept private. That person might later be a witness, which is why their identity is being protected until there's a trial. In cases like this, it's fairly standard for witness names to remain confidential, and Wayfair's team even agreed to that part. They actually encouraged keeping the witness anonymous. But the real issue is what the declaration contained. It pointed to an audio recording involving Steve Sarowitz, one of the defendants, and raised allegations of verbal mistreatment by Baldoni. Lively's side wanted this recording kept completely sealed, but Wayfair opposed that request. Their argument was that the recording included Sarowitz's own voice, yet he didn't consent to being recorded. If that's the case, they believe the entire recording should be made available to the court and the public, not hidden away. Their stance is that Blake already quoted parts of the conversation in her filings, so blocking the rest creates an unfair picture. They want the full context shared. Whether this recording was legal depends on where it was made. Some states allow recordings if just one person agrees to it, while others require permission from both sides. California, for example, is a two-party consent state. In their filings, Wayfair argued that since Sarowitz never agreed, the court should treat the evidence carefully and lean toward transparency. They also cited several past rulings where courts emphasized the public's right to access documents tied to important motions. Judges, they noted, are expected to release materials unless there are extraordinary reasons not to, such as safety concerns, trade secrets, or serious privacy violations. Simply worrying about embarrassment or bad publicity isn't enough. Wayfair's team believes Lively's request to seal the declaration is overly broad. They argue she should only be able to hide personal details, like names or identifying information, not the full content. In addition, they pointed out that Lively already revealed the existence of the audio by listing time markers in her filings, something that clearly shows it's a tape. Because she herself disclosed this, Wayfair claims it makes no sense for her to demand secrecy now. They argue she's trying to control the narrative by sharing only selective parts while blocking the rest, which could mislead the court. At its core, this dispute is about transparency, credibility, and how much evidence the public and the court are entitled to see. The outcome will likely shape how both sides argue moving forward and whether this recording becomes a central piece of the case. They want to keep secret parts of the declaration that explain when the meeting happened and what the recorded talk was about. Wayfair says only two things should stay hidden: the witness's name and the project title. Everything else, the timing, the reason for the meeting, and what happened before and after, does not reveal who the witness is and should be available to the public. Wayfair argues that Lively is hiding the full story, not protecting the person. Their legal point is that her request is too broad. She appears to be using the sealing rules to cover up context, which could make her claim of verbal mistreatment look weaker. Because they say Sarowitz never agreed to be recorded, Wayfair wants the full tape unsealed so people can hear the whole exchange. They flip Lively's privacy argument and say this is not about shielding a victim, but about Lively using secrecy as a weapon. In their filing they note that the plaintiff gives no real reason to keep Exhibit 1 sealed other than worries about more media attention. Courts have repeatedly said fear of bad headlines or damage to reputation is not enough to justify secrecy. Wayfair points out that Lively herself caused much of the publicity by quoting parts of the audio in court filings. So if anyone has a privacy interest here, it belongs to Sarowitz, the person recorded without consent, and he should be allowed to make the full recording public rather than rely on Lively's potentially incomplete transcript. Lively asked the judge to keep the whole declaration and the audio closed off, claiming the disclosure could harm the possible witness. Now that it appears the speaker is Sarowitz, it's hard to see how she can claim his privacy on his behalf, especially if he wants the recording released. Wayfair cites earlier cases that say embarrassment and negative press do not meet the high standard needed to overcome the public's right to access court records. Judges in the Southern District of New York have said the same thing repeatedly. Ordinary reputational concerns are not extraordinary reasons to seal evidence. Wayfair is willing to redact identifying details, names, project titles, contact information, but they insist that the substance of the recording and the facts around it should be open. They argue that Lively is trying to control the narrative by releasing selective excerpts while hiding the rest, which risks misleading the judge and the public. This selective approach, they say, can distort meaning and let accusations stand without full context. The company also stresses that public access matters because these materials influence decisions in the case. If the audio shows different context than the snippets Lively quoted, it could undermine her claims. Wayfair's goal is to prevent one-sided storytelling and ensure that the court and observers can hear the full conversation, so the record is complete and fair. Finally, many followers of the case question whether the judge has shown favoritism, and some believe his rulings have been biased toward Lively and her husband. But Wayfair focuses strictly on established law in their brief, urging the court to follow the precedent that favors disclosure unless there's a narrow, serious reason to keep things closed. The judge has denied any claims of corruption, yet many people watching this case believe the court leans toward Blake Lively's side. Each time her opponents ask for something, there's an expectation that it will be refused. That suspicion lingers here, and some believe this latest request may also be shut down. At the same time, there is a reminder that the judge recently reversed one of his own earlier rulings. In that earlier matter, he first ordered certain documents to be handed over, saying they were not protected. But when a turn is argued that some of those discussions included a client of Friedman's law firm, Jed Wallace, he reconsidered. Because Wallace was involved, the judge allowed Wayfair and Wallace to submit privilege logs and mark what should be kept private before anything was released to Lively's team. Lively's lawyers complained about this, saying the other side had plenty of time to argue and had missed their chance. The judge did not agree. He permitted the new privilege claims, which shows he can adjust if he feels there's legal support. This means in the current dispute, it's possible the court could allow the witness's identity to stay secret while still making the recording and details available, especially since Sarowitz himself wants it released. The outcome will reveal whether the judge sticks with precedent on transparency or bends toward Lively again. Critics argue that this is another example of Lively pushing the limits of the system. She seems eager to put forward evidence that fuels headlines, but questions remain about whether the material is truly solid. If the recording reveals that what she called verbal abuse does not fit that description, it weakens her position. Timing also matters. If the conversation happened shortly after Lively's accusations, it could look like she influenced someone to capture it for her benefit. That raises the question, why was the conversation recorded in the first place, and why was it handed over to Lively? These doubts cast shadows over her tactics. Wayfair's attorneys are not accusing the witness of committing a crime, nor are they asking for penalties against that person. Instead, they are focusing on fairness. Their stance is clear: if someone secretly recorded Sarowitz, then the entire recording should be made public so context is not lost. They argue that it would be unjust to allow Lively to pick pieces of the tape to build her story while hiding the rest. To them, this is about protecting the integrity of the court process and ensuring that all parties, and the public, see the complete truth. This situation highlights the larger theme running through the case: Lively's aggressive efforts to shape the narrative in her favor. By pushing unusual strategies and introducing questionable evidence, she risks giving the impression that the case is more about headlines than substance. Whether or not the judge allows the recording to be unsealed will be another turning point. It may show if transparency prevails, or if suspicion of bias grows even stronger. Make sure to like, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments.